Welcome, Susan. I'm so happy to have you here. And I just want everyone to know that Susan Day is my special guest for today. And we were just talking a moment ago because she lives in the future from me. She's in Australia. And so she's in the actual next day. So it's always a funny thing. But I know the only things that I really know about you is that you're big into art and that you're wanting to help people with art. So, before we get started, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, just a quick intro, and then I got a little quick story I want to share with you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for
Yeah.
having me. So yeah, the future, it's the same as yesterday. It's just like people often ask me, what's it like Saturday morning or something? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's probably the
Be all right
same.
if we could ask you what the lottery numbers were and you could go ahead and
Yeah,
fill
well,
us
if I
in,
knew
right?
that, I wouldn't be here. I'd be signing in from the Bahamas or somewhere. Oh, no, it's really lovely to be here. I'm a mindful arts coach or
What?
therapist, a mindful arts.
Okay, mindful arts. Okay.
Yep, coach. And what I do is mindful arts therapy. And it's just not about teaching people how to paint, but teaching people how to use art materials to really express how they're feeling, kind of dig deep on those emotions a little bit, and, work on building confidence and empowerment. Yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. And I've been doing
Oh,
it for quite a few years, and I've written 10 books, I
ooh,
think. I lose count.
nice.
Bit of an overachiever. I'm working on online courses at the moment, which I'm very excited about. And last year I developed an art therapy app, which is
Ooh,
yeah, which was really, really
yeah, how
hard.
exciting.
It
Yeah.
was really, it was like those of you that have had children will know it's like having a baby. It was just well, not as painful, but
Yeah.
it was yeah, tumultuous and interesting, and I learned a lot. And I have this beautiful baby app now
Nice,
that
nice.
I'm sharing with the world. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
beautiful. So
exciting.
just so everybody knows, I will have in the description, I will have all the links for how to reach you and how to download your app and all of that stuff. So we'll take care of that. But the story I wanted to share with you is a few years ago, I went on a spiritual retreat. And I've always been an artist, but it was fine art. And I would critique myself all the time. I didn't measure up because the things in my head wouldn't come out right on the canvas. It never matched, kind of like watching a movie and your imagination, it never looks as good. Um, and so I would critique myself a lot. And so I went on this spiritual retreat, and one of the amazing things that they did, which sounds like it might be something a little similar to what you do, and so I want to ask you about something else to being a guest on my in my group, maybe, because I think they would love this. But what they did was there was a facilitator that she did art, and she said she wanted us to paint our emotions and not paint a picture. And so what they did was they set us all up with a canvas on a easel. They gave us three colors of paint. We could pick out our three colors, and that's all we got. And it was on a little styrofoam plate. And then we had a bucket of water, and then we were just supposed to paint. But they had music playing. They had people that were doing drum circles around us, and there was somebody coming by with a feather and moving the energy around the room. I mean, it was this amazing experience. It wasn't just you paint, right? And I had the most amazing experience. And my painting didn't look like anything that was fine art, right? But I had the most fun painting it. And when I would look at it, I just felt like, this is amazing. And so when I brought it home, I paid a lot of money to frame this picture because it's hanging in my dining room. And every time I walk past it, it takes me back to that moment and back to the place of painting your emotions and letting this flow out of you instead of it being a fixed item that you're trying to paint. And it really got me back into painting more and diving into my feelings more. I am a transformational coach and a hypnotist. And so I do a lot of that stuff, but there's something about, like you said, the art that was just, it was just amazing. And so I'm really, really excited to hear a little bit about how you do this because I know in your little thing that you filled out to be on the podcast, you said that something about telling people that they could do amazing things with just a crayon. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was like, oh, I love that. So just kind of tell us a little bit about what this art therapy stuff is for you. Is it anything like what I experienced, or is it something totally different? But I just wanted to share that with you.
That's a beautiful story. And you've already, I mean, I could probably go home now. You've already, well, I am home. No, we've said it all.
Well, then I
But
should
yeah,
have
that
saved it
power.
for later.
Oh, I'll save that. But yeah, that power of just playing with paint.
Yeah.
Um, I've always been an artist, probably like
Hmm.
you, and always done the fine art. And you're absolutely right. You say, I'm going to paint a picture of this. And you turn around and go, yeah, no, it's not quite what I imagined.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you feel there's a disconnect there. And so what I learned when I became, for starters, when I started studying art therapy, I was a bit,
Well,
like you
what
get
brought
three
you to
colors.
studying art therapy to start
Oh,
with?
I have a background in teaching and English
Okay.
lit, and I was asked to edit a lady's thesis. It had been actually rejected, even though she'd gone through all this study and all the rest of it. But because the English was so poor, um, she said, "Look, I'll pay you. I just need to get it done. I've done, I just want to get out in the world and do, you know, which is a very art therapy person." Um, and it was about art therapy, and I was like, "Oh, this is a thing," you
Oh,
know.
wow.
I mean, it
That's
is 100
wild.
years old, so I'm kind of still catching up. But yeah, I never realized that it was I think somewhere deep down inside, I always understood that art had this power. It was always something, it was my go-to when I was upset. It was my go-to when I needed to figure something out and really make some decisions. But I never knew that it was something you could study and help others with. And so
Mm.
while I was studying, like you say, you get three paints and you're sitting there, you're like, is this it? You know what? And I'm like sitting there with, and I have a good brain and I was trying to intellectualize everything. But of course, it's a little bit like a iceberg insofar as you've got your three paints and you're like working on your emotions. And then, but underneath there's all this other stuff that's
Hmm.
bubbling away and eking out, and yeah, it's really lovely. And I run classes here in Australia. We have neighborhood houses which are they're sponsored or taken care by the local government.
Hmm.
So like our local community, so every shire, every area has one or two, um, quite separate from say our libraries or other community places. So I run a little group there, and I, developed all these art therapy activities and wrote all these books. And I thought, I really need to see this stuff in practice and to see how it works. And I've been amazed. I mean, we don't have the drums and we don't have somebody with a feather. We're very practical and grounded and in, that sort of sense because it's a weekly class and, people
Hmm.
sometimes come and sometimes don't. Um, and for example, last week it was going to be cancelled because there was a problem with the power. It was being cut off. They were doing all these renovations, and so the manager contacted me and said, "Oh, look, I'm sorry, you can't run your class this week." So we have a WhatsApp group, and I'm like, "Okay, sorry, guys." And somebody stepped, and they were all like, "Oh no, no, this is just terrible. We have to do this,
Oh,
It's just,
wow.
and so we got another lady was very generous and provided another venue, and it was just touching to see how much it meant to them, even though we don't do and I've been to sessions like you experienced,
Hmm.
but we don't do that because there isn't. they call it, like it's a big old house and room, and it just there isn't I guess the vibe to do that, but it's just incredibly powerful, and none of these people are artists.
Mhm.
They just like doing art.
Yeah.
And I have a rule normally, but I did break it this week. I have a rule that they're not allowed to sketch anything out with a pencil.
Okay.
Okay. And we don't have erasers. So
Okay.
I'm a big fan of Bob Ross, and there's no such thing as accidents, just
Yeah.
happy mistakes.
That's
He's
right.
I love him. Certainly before his time. And I said to, and they always complain, and then one of them said, "Oh, we just wait for you to leave the room." What working with grown-ups is like.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But I said to them, when I stopped using a pencil, when I let go of that need to draft something, my creativity and my art skill just went through the roof. I
Hmm.
suddenly thought, that was just it was just an amazing experience. Yeah. But yeah, you don't have to, that's one of the other things I love about art therapy is you don't have to be an artist.
Hmm.
You just have to give it a go.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we all have emotions. That's what we're painting, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so how long has it been since you did that helped with that thesis and got really
Oh gosh,
interested?
that would have been a good 8 years ago, at least, if
Okay.
not more. Yeah, I'm not very good. Yeah. Yeah. I have a dog who's 6.5 years old, and I didn't have him, so I'm going back.
Isn't it funny how we use so many little things? Like when I finished school, that usually was my thing. Well, when I was in the 10th grade, when I was in the 11th grade,
Yeah, that's right.
and once you get out of school, it's like, well, where's that measuring stick? How do I
Yeah,
remember
that's
when
right.
it was?
That's right. Yeah, there's the dog, the granddaughter that was born during COVID, and a couple of other things. And I'm like, no, and she's 3.5. No,
Perfect, perfect. So when you do your art therapy now, you're doing it with these people in these basically homes, right? And
yeah, they're usually converted old houses. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And so do you ever do this online?
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I do individual one-on-one as well. Yeah.
Hmm. So what does that look like?
It's quite different because
Okay.
in a group setting, you have to, you don't want somebody to begin to, I guess, delve into too deep,
Hmm.
because there isn't the opportunity to counsel. There isn't the opportunity to check, see how they're
Okay.
going. It's quite a busy group. There's a lot of chatter, as well. So when we're doing
Which is what
one-on-one,
happens when you get a bunch of women together, right?
oh, yeah, that's right. I have a saying like, and sometimes I get a word in. Like, and the manager who runs the house is like, "Oh, good luck with that," she says. She just shakes her head.
Funny, funny.
But yeah, but one-on-one we can go a bit deeper, and
Hmm.
we can look at, maybe touch on things, and if there is the time and the space to
Hmm.
work on, to really work around, perhaps some raw emotions.
Hmm.
I can't do an activity, that might be trauma related in the group and then just send them home. It would be
Right,
it would
right.
be irresponsible and unethical.
So
So
this is really intriguing, and I know I just interrupted you again, but that kind of is what I do when I'm really interested. So when you're working with someone one-on-one, they come to you because they've got this emotion thing that they're wanting to get out, right? Am I
yeah,
understanding correctly? And
correct. Yeah.
then so is it like PTSD, or is it
Could be.
just regular, you just got some shit going on, right? Kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah?
I really hate my boss to the
Yeah?
point where it's affecting my work.
Okay.
Or
So
you
let's
know,
say we've got
yeah.
someone that's watching right now and they hate their boss and you're going to help them work through it. What do you do? What do you talk to them about? How do you direct them? I'm really curious.
No, and I mean, another great thing about art therapy is you often don't need to talk.
Okay.
So it bypasses the need for talk therapy. And it is a wonderful tool you can use along with your counseling and, psych work and talk therapy, or it's something you can use instead of. Or, I mean, I imagine in America, it's like here, there's a huge long waiting list. Seeing a psychologist is very expensive. So it's one of the reasons I developed my books, sorry,
Hmm.
as an aside, is so people can try it for a few dollars and perhaps connect into something while they're working or with their psychologist or counselor. And yeah. But what I do is I might say to them, you know, why we're here, is there something you'd like to work on? And some people go, oh, nah, I don't know. Which
Yeah.
must be really frustrating for psychologists because they're like, ah, because all they've got is talk. So
Hmm.
that's the skill, is getting people to open up.
Right.
But I don't need to do that. I can just push a piece of paper towards them and a set of colored markers, and I can say to them, think of one thing that's bothering you. And it might not be your boss. It might be the fact that you've forgotten to put the bins out. Or, like the cat might have just been sick on the carpet. It's just,
Hmm.
I have cats. That's what they do. Um, and yeah, oh yeah, all right, all right. And they sit down and they, what do you want me to do? And and I said, I just want you to make some marks. I want you to choose any color. The art therapy, we don't judge, we don't criticize. Unlike you, Ricky, we don't hang anything we've done on the wall. Some things, if you, you might get something and just go, just going to tear this up now, chuck it away, but it's done its job.
Hmm.
And there's a few activities I use where there's one I really love where you write a letter to somebody who's caused you trauma, you fold it into an origami boat and you set it sail.
Hmm.
So you release and let go. Um, so yeah, they might just sit there and like I can gauge where they're at by the colors they choose and the shapes they make
Ooh, ooh, tell me
and
about
where they
that.
make the marks on the paper. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So talking to a young teen girl about her anxiety, and I said, I want you to feel it for a little bit. And her mother was with us as well. So it was safe. We created a safe space for her. I said, well, I want you to feel this anxiety and just have a play with these paints. Okay. I don't care what you do. Well, I'll probably care if you paint the walls, but you know what I mean. It's just, the rules. Yeah. And she just started doing very straight lines, very black, very grey, but right down the bottom of the paper. Right, nothing, and then she just moved up a little bit. And so we chatted about that and chatted about her sense of worth, which was very low,
Hmm.
and this fear, this terrible fear she had of everything going wrong or nothing would work out right. And as a comparison, there was another little girl, and she had always been, I guess, the teacher's pet. And and it was a well-deserved title.
Hmm.
She was one of these kids that would help all the other kids in the class and do this and do that. And a new child had come to the class, and the teacher was favoring this other girl. And she knew deep down inside that the new girl and her could probably be best friends because they had a lot in common. And the little girl I was talking to had a very, sort of very generous heart. And she just sat there drawing green circles. And, colors always have a negative and a positive,
Hmm.
as many as your listeners will know. But circles are contemplative. Now, green is the color of nature and, rebirth, but it's also the color of envy.
Mm.
And so she was drawing green circles and thinking about processing what was going on. And I asked her, the how, like, I asked a few questions, and in the end, she said, "No, I think it'll be okay." That's all she was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she'd worked through it. She was obviously envious and jealous, as we would all be, of
Hmm.
this new girl that was usurping her status and taking up the teacher's time, but she was also, I guess, emotionally intelligent enough to go, no, it'll probably be okay. And the circles of the thinking, the contemplating,
Yeah.
working through something. Yeah. So
Nice.
just
Oh, I love
yeah.
that. So
But if you're
does
angry with
that,
your boss and you're doing red jagged lines,
uh-huh.
we need to have a really big chat.
So does that mean when people are doodling that it's a similar thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what if I'm trying to think when I doodle, I haven't been doodling in a bit, but I used to doodle and it was always triangles and squares
Yep.
and I would shade them in and make them boxes and then all that stuff. So what does that say?
Left brain, logical. It depends on where you are and what you were listening to at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, anything that's angled
Hmm.
is more, I guess, more abrasive, more maybe a more heightened emotion.
Hmm.
When I doodle flowers that I can make without lifting the pen off the paper,
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and I'll do whole daisy chains down sides of diaries
Oh,
and
no.
things.
Well, I have done that too. Well,
Yeah.
not daisies, but a similar thing,
Yeah.
like leaves and things like that. So I was really curious, because one of the things that I've studied is handwriting analysis and how you write your letters and how you space them and all the things are you coming out on the paper.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
but one of the things I'm just going to ask you really quick, one of the things is when I was studying that, the handwriting analysis, that one of the things that you could do to change the inside is consciously changing your writing would help you to reconnect and redo some things. Is that the same? Like if you were doing your art and you strategically changed what you were doing, does it kind of help to change all that inside with the
Oh,
motions and
absolutely.
everything?
Yeah. And particularly with
Okay.
the mediums you use.
Okay.
Broadly, obviously, I'm not talking about, quite specifically. So for people who are quite anxious, that's again a sense of lack of control.
Mm-hmm.
So we might use like gel pens.
Mm-hmm.
And gel pens are beautiful to use, and the colors are so vibrant, and the finish is just it's fabulous.
Yeah.
But you have to be very slow and do them very carefully. And this
Mm-hmm.
is why coloring books are so popular. And I'll
Okay.
just say right now, art therapy's got nothing to do with coloring books, but that's another thing. Um, on the other hand, if you're depressed and you're just so down and out, using yellow and orange paints can really lift your mood. And just the
Okay.
enjoying the mindfulness of just enjoying the paint, the freedom to move this paint around and, push it here and drag it back there and put another splash of yellow in here or red there. And, those sorts of colors will lift you. So, you know, the cool, calm colors of blue, greens, and purples bring our mood down, which
Mm-hmm.
can be a good thing if like I get fizzy brain and I'm like, I've got to, when I'm in
Yeah.
creative mode. Um, but if you're feeling a bit down and a bit blue, bring it up with a bit of yellow. And so, yeah, I imagine there's quite a lot of parallel between studying handwriting and how we
Mm-hmm.
express ourselves with art. And one thing that I do with my class is they say I've heard them say we never know what we're going to do 1 week from the next.
Keep them on their toes, right?
That's right. And for me, they also know that they're my guinea pigs. And I've got this great idea, guys. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go. She's off again.
Oh, I love being in
But they
those kind of
recognize
classes.
we love it.
Yeah.
But they recognize, and one of the ladies, I have two ladies that come that have a sight impairment. So
Mm-hmm.
visually it's a challenge for them. And one thing I never realized is the tables are an off-white color, and I handed this lady a piece of white paper, and she said to me, "I can't quite see the edges," and it never
Mm-hmm.
never dawned on me.
Yeah.
Because she's just sits there and draws like everybody else every week.
Yeah.
So I found a large piece of black cardboard
Mm-hmm.
so we can work like that. So, yeah, it's just really fascinating, and everybody comes up with a different response, as you would have
Yeah.
seen in the class you did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And that class that I did, it was amazing. Some people still tried to draw something, like an
Oh, they can't
emblem
help
or
themselves. Yeah.
something. But for me and quite a few of them, it was just I just started putting color on the board, And then I would play with, because I love doing the textures and seeing what things do. So it got to be like this experiment. If I have too much water on my brush when I do this, what happens? If I don't have enough, what happens? And so it was just like freeing to be able to just play, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that is amazing. It is amazing. And like I said, it was very freeing for me. Um, as far as releasing my expectations that I had to be a perfect artist because I am not, right? And I got where I didn't draw and I didn't paint because I would see other people's work and it would be so profound. I would think, oh, there is no way I can even do that. I'd love to, but I don't know how. I just do nothing. And
Yeah.
it was just one of those things. And
Wow.
going to that class, it just kind of freed me out to say, it's okay. My art is my art and it's me. Even when I do fine art, it's still me.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it's not the quality I feel that this other person has. So it
Yeah.
was really got me to where I was able to see the value in just the doing.
That's it. And that's almost that paradigm shift. Yeah,
Hmm.
isn't it? That
Yeah.
art is a tool
Hmm.
that helps you express whatever you need or work through whatever you want to do. And that the end results are the end results. And we
Yeah.
never judge. We try not to judge. And that is a hard thing
Yeah,
to,
it
when
is.
you're dealing with younger people and they're like, oh, this is rubbish and I should have done it like this. I was like, no, it's meant to look the way it's meant to look. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's
Well, I
cool.
have
Yeah.
to admit, when I was doing, before this class, when I was doing fine art, I loved using oil paints. But the main
Ah,
reason was because it's very forgiving. You can walk away and you can come back and you can redo a whole bunch of stuff, because I had done some with acrylic. When you put it on there, man, it dries so fast, you just got to paint over it. You can't redo it. And so I loved oil because I could just manipulate it again and try to get to that place that I wanted it to be, even though most of the time I couldn't get it there. But it's interesting because when you're talking about the markers and how you have to go slow and that helps calm people, right? Um, and they're, thinking about when I first started with art, I was one of those kids that I loved to draw and color. So I would get a coloring book and I would color it, but I would shade it. I would do all these things. And then I got where I would draw things and then color it. And so my mom got me art classes with an individual. And that was just the beginning of it. But I really wish it would have been so amazing to have also had someone that was like, let's just put it out
yeah,
here on the canvas. Let's just paint what we
yeah,
feel. And you don't have to follow this. Because she would have, when I was taking the class, she would have a picture up and I was supposed to duplicate the picture so she could
yeah,
see. And when I was in college and I did art, one of the things that they did was they would put a picture up and they would say, okay, what you need to do is you've got to flip it. So you would paint what was there. It would be a still life, not a picture. And then you would have to reverse it, how it was, which was very difficult. Or at the time, I felt like it was difficult. But there's all of those things are so amazing, but there's so much freedom in what you do and
absolutely. Yeah.
release. Yeah.
And that joy and just that rush,
Hmm.
yeah. And the confidence
Yeah.
that you get, not from formal training. And there's nothing wrong with formal training, but I usually, whenever someone's new to the class, I will say to them, I'm not going to teach you how to do art. I'm
Yeah.
not going to teach you how to paint.
Yeah.
There is actually a terrific class down the road. You're welcome to join them. They're on a different day to us, so you can do both. Um, and they'll help you.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just about giving yourself permission. And we had a gentleman join our class a few weeks ago, and he is very, very small. Everything's very small and tight and contained. And I don't really know much about him on a personal level, but he said to me, I haven't done this since I was a child. And I
Oh.
went, yeah. And I said, why is that? And he said, because I got to high school and they didn't let us. You know,
Ah.
the art student, now you and I were obviously the art students, but they were off to one side.
Yeah.
Unless you expressed an interest or put your hand up, you were stuck in the maths and the English and the sciences, which is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but
Right.
to be creative, the great scientists, the great medical breakthroughs we've had, or even the political breakthroughs we've had, are from very creative people.
Right.
And a lot of them, you find out when you dig a little bit deep about their background, are very accomplished musicians
Yeah.
or even artists.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill was a fabulous watercolor artist,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it's
Yeah.
like we both know Sue Anderson, which has the
Oh, yeah,
Entrepreneurs Gone Wild, right? And
lovely. Yeah.
so I find like the last time I did a painting, my daughter and I did one, and we took it out in the backyard, put the easel out, and we took all our paints, and we just stood and painted the things that we saw. And just something about being in the air and the breeze was blowing. We could hear the wind chimes and all of those things. It just made it was like there was a flow to it that just was freeing, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when I did that retreat and they were doing the drums and they had the feathers, it was kind of the same thing. You had the breeze, you could hear the drums and it kind of felt like you were somewhere else and letting your emotions out, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And that's that creating that and creating like in the session you did, they created a different atmosphere. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of broke, I
Yeah.
guess they broke through the physical
Yeah.
of the room, of the
Yeah.
where the windows were, but I love sound therapy. And so
Yeah.
the drums and that would have just, that sort of echoing back to something quite primeval, but also something really deep and essential. And then you've got, the feather person.
Yeah. It was
Um,
interesting. I'll
that would
tell
have
you.
been fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And one
Yeah.
of the things too was there were times that I kind of felt like I wasn't there.
Mm.
I was
Yeah, that
so deep into my
yeah.
feelings. It was like I
Yeah.
felt like I left my body and I was
Yeah.
just watching this painting be produced, right?
Yeah.
And then every now and then I'd hear something that would bring me right back. And then I felt like I just kind of kept coming in and out. And I kind of felt that way when I was in my backyard too. And I
Cool.
was just experiencing the emotion of the moment. It
Yeah.
helps you to stop being so stuck, I guess, because most of the time we're so grounded into who we are or who we think we
Yeah.
are that we're
Who we
just
think we
stuck
are.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So do you
Yeah.
find
And
that
it does.
people are having that
Sorry.
experience?
Yeah. And I had a friend whose psychologist said to her, "Oh, it's all very well if you do art, but it's really just a distraction."
Oh my
And
gosh.
I thought about it and I went, yeah, that's the point. Because and I, went to do some research because, often you have a gut instinct, but it's really good to get somebody else, to get these
Yeah,
re
I get you.
just to back you up. And I went back and I went, listen, I've got an idea. And there's actually a whole lot of research that says when, like what you experienced when you went through that painting that image well, is that you can leave your worries behind.
Hmm.
You can, you don't have to worry about all of a sudden all the things that we worry about that are, knocking on our brains and bothering us don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And it creates a space, and it's a space for healing, and it's a space for contemplation. And you can be, you might just, and this lady just colors in and, she does her own thing and and she just loves it. And then all of a sudden you come out of it and you go, oh, hang on, I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
Or it lessens the worries, it brings them down a bit and they're more manageable. And so it is a distraction, but
Hmm.
it's a way of, I guess, like what Sue Anderson, we discussed when I was being in her interview is like is go outside.
Yeah.
When you go outside, you don't see the dishes. You don't have to worry about what you're cooking for dinner. You
Yeah.
don't see, the phone. You might leave your phone behind. You're not being bothered. You're not being judged. You're not having to compare yourself. You're not trying to fight to be something else. You
Yeah.
can go out in nature and just be
Yeah.
and and they yeah and
Yeah.
being.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And you know what came to mind as you were talking is one of the things that is I think interesting is that, you know, we can't they I hear this all the time. We cannot create a solution when we're immersed in the problem,
True.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's one of the things I feel like art does is it you could have all the things about the problem going on, and as soon as you start getting your hand busy, because there's this connection between your brain, your heart, and your hand, and you get your hand busy, suddenly that problem is not your focus. So you're not in the problem anymore, and the solutions can come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And it's it's quite a complex notion, but it just really works. It
Yeah.
works really, really well. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I love that. You know, because I tell people a lot of times on in my group on Facebook, I have a journal prompt and an affirmation that I do for everybody. And one of the things that I tell them is before you start journaling, you have to get into the moment, listen to your breath, and then you spend some time in silence so that you can connect to your inner guidance. And what that's really doing is taking them out of whatever problem or whatever that's going on so that they can actually hear the intuition, the guidance that's already there that most of the time all our chatter is keeping at bay, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
so
Yeah.
by getting still and focusing on just the flow of painting, because there's a flow to it, it just has this rhythm as soon as you get started, right?
Yeah.
And that just helps you to flow into this new idea, new thing without judging yourself.
Yeah, this is it. And I mean, every one of my activities in every book begins with a little mindful exercise.
Ooh,
And
I
some
love
people
that.
have reviewed it and criticized it. And it's the same with the
Really?
app. Yeah. So, but both in the book and in the app, I explain, yes, it's repeated because you need to practice this.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, yeah. I do
yeah,
the same Tai Chi exercises every day because I'm really not very good at them.
yeah. Well, you know, that's
Yeah,
the thing too. You know, most of the time we don't even grasp what somebody has said until they've said it 10, 15 times. You
that's
know,
it. Yeah. And
that's
these are books where you don't do anything in a logical sequence. You can grab an activity here, grab an activity there. You might just only do one or two activities and put the book to one side for a while. So for me, the reminder that you need to, like you say, you need to sit down, do a little bit of a body scan, imagine being surrounded by a beautiful, glorious golden light. Lots of nice long deep breaths, and then you begin. And it's
hmm
that centering that, oh, hang on, I've got a bit of stress here. And oh, yeah,
yeah,
oh, yeah, there's my there going. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, and it's interesting the amount of people that go, oh, there's this bit oh, it's a great book, but oh, it's a bit boring and repetitive. And I was like, yeah, no, you didn't read the introduction properly. So,
yeah.
but I think that's also a reflection of the world we live in.
Yeah, and you know, there are some people, it doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to accept it because they really don't want to do the change work.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it could be that it wouldn't even be repetitive. It could be something magically new in each book, and they would still have something to say because they don't really want to do the work. So that's an excuse for not doing the work.
True. That's very true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is amazing that that old saying, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You know, a
Yep.
lot of people say they want to change, but they don't. They want to stay the same and get different results.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because nobody likes change.
Yeah.
They like the result of change, but
hmm
the actual change itself is hard
It can
and
be
it's
very uncomfortable. Yeah.
very, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
And, you know, and I know you know this, I'm sure, but I tell my group all the time that, you know, if you're not moving towards something, you're not staying where you are. You're
Mm,
going
mm,
backwards because the only
absolutely.
constant in life is change. You cannot move 1 inch, but actually you're still changing.
Yes. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And so
Yeah.
you either change on purpose or you change by default. And a
Yes.
lot of people feel like if they aren't doing anything to move their life forward, they're staying in the same place. But
Yeah.
that's a mistaken premise, you know?
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love you. I think we need to
Ah,
talk again.
I love you too. Fun, isn't it? When I was interviewed with Sue, I don't know what I said, but she laughed so much she fell off a chair.
So I'm curious your background that you have, and I know that people that are listening and not watching
Oh
can't
yeah.
see your background, but there's a lot of different circles, and it looks like some are watercolor. They may all be watercolor, but the thing that I love about this, and I don't know if that's art that you created or not, but some of them, there's different sizes, but some of them are imperfect circles. They got the flaws around the edges, and some of them are more solid than others. And so and all the beautiful colors, and it's just really inviting just to see it. So is that art you created, or is that something someone else
No,
created?
well, I did, but I sort of played around on Canva and got it all together. But
Okay.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. It isn't a perfect polka dot. Again, I love circles and anything contemplative. And the colors, of course, like my logo, is the bird taking off, and
Yeah.
and that sort of sense
Like
that
a
you're
phoenix
just beginning to
rising.
lift. Yeah, yeah,
Isn't
yeah,
that right?
exactly.
Phoenix
Yeah,
rising. It kind of looks like a phoenix
yeah,
to me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that idea that with you're just beginning to change, and the colors of the vibrancy. So, and
Yeah.
then that is, even if you look really closely at my logo, there's bits of feathers that are coming off. So
Ooh.
there's a shedding as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll do an Instagram post about it. But I think that celebration of the imperfectness of us and how wonderful that can be.
Yeah.
Um, and how we need to celebrate that sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's all right saying, well, I made a mistake and I'm going to forgive myself. But I think also on a day-to-day basis, we need to be so much kinder to ourselves. And we really need to even just laugh at ourselves a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
It's,
we
yeah.
tend to, most people have such an inner dialogue going on that is
Mm,
so mean. We wouldn't even talk to someone we know in the same way, right? That we talk to
exactly.
ourselves. And one
Yeah.
of my favorite books is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Have you ever read that?
Yep. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
he talks about all that inner dialogue and how we've got this stuff going on. And so when you can be freer with yourself, you kind of remove that, that chatter that is going on that is so
Mm,
cruel to
mm.
yourself. And you can start getting into the space where you're taking action, and it doesn't have to be perfect, whether that's action with painting or whether that's action in your business or anything. You take
Yeah.
imperfect action and it feels good.
And you just show up.
Yeah.
One thing I really took on last year when, like I thought, well, who am I to create an app?
Yeah.
I did a lot of reading and research, and I thought an app was a bit like a website you use on your phone, and it is, but it also isn't. There's there's a whole lot of other stuff
So
that
did you
happens
have to
behind.
do your own coding and everything for that?
Oh, heavens, no, I paid some lovely gentleman to do that.
Okay.
Very patient. I'm like, what's this bit do? And they're like, don't touch anything. So
So,
I designed it, and I put all the information into it, or all the art therapy activities.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I just thought, no, I need to do this.
yeah,
There's something, God, universe saying to me, we need this, you need to do this. And so it's probably imperfect, even though I, tried to make it really good, like the editing and everything else that goes into it. Um, but I knew deep down inside I just had to show up and do it. And it's
yeah,
the same with social media. And I have a Facebook group and you do, and it can be really imperfect at times, but you show up
yeah,
and you give it a go and you work on it. Yeah, it's
yeah.
true.
Well, one thing I've discovered, especially with social media, when you're imperfect, people actually will come to you quicker because when you get to a very polished place where everything is just on spot on and it's edited and it's done all these things, there's a disconnection that a lot of people start moving away from you,
Oh,
and then they
absolutely.
go
And
to
yeah,
someone else, right?
yeah. And
That's
it's one of the things another reason I decided to show up is I watched art therapy videos, I watched YouTube tutorials, and I thought, oh, this is incredibly perfect work. These are artists that
mm-hmm.
are that are showing up as therapists who are creating artwork that 99% of the population couldn't do.
Yeah.
The other thing is they have really beautifully manicured nails, which I don't because I'm outside a lot. So I'm a bit embarrassed about my nails. So hiding them away. Sitting
uh,
conversation.
don't be embarrassed, don't be embarrassed.
But
Mine
when I
actually
started
needs
this,
something right now anyway, so
but and I started this group, and one lady said to me, oh, I didn't really know whether I wanted to come and she had been in exactly the same boat. She said,
mm,
I see all this art therapy stuff done. I see, people, and she's a fabulous sewer, yeah,
mhm.
and crocheter, um, just really fabulous stuff. And she's like, I just didn't feel like I was good enough. And I thought, yeah, I know what you're saying. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with you. So, and
Hmm.
again, with the art therapy is you show up and you just do it, and it's not going to be great. I've been working through things and I've just done scribble on paper.
Yeah.
Just done scribble on paper. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, the one that I framed, it doesn't mean that anybody else would appreciate it. It's not
Yeah.
that kind of art, but
Yeah.
something about it being the very first time I ever painted just my emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It was
interesting,
like,
isn't it? Yeah.
I'm saving this. I'm going to frame it so that every time I walk through that room, I am reminded of my growth that I got just from that. And it almost
Yeah.
takes me back to that same feeling I had when I was doing the art,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly right. Is that you make that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of art therapy activities that say put this somewhere where every day you're going to see it and you're going to
Yeah.
walk past it and you're going to be reminded of
Yeah.
this sense of empowerment and your inner beauty and joy. Yeah,
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So,
isn't it?
um, share with me for just a minute, if you don't mind. I know you've said you've got several books. So, one of the books, just pick one out of your mind. It doesn't matter which one. And then just tell me like a little bit about the book. I know you said you've got some things that somebody says is repetitive, which doesn't matter, but what is it that's in the book? So, can you tell me about it?
Yeah, so I have five of activity books that are
Hmm.
based they're on healing, joy, gratitude, finding your true self,
Hmm.
and finding your sense of calm.
Okay. So
The
each one of
healing,
those subjects has different activities in the book.
absolutely 25
Okay, okay,
activities under each one,
okay,
that look at how to you deal with this. So,
okay.
and I try to I mean, most people think of art therapy, they think of painting and drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So I really broadened that, and I actually had a sort of process where I double checked I wasn't using the same activity too often. Um, even though you could do 25 painting activities, let's say, about finding your true self.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things will work with clay. Other things talk about
Okay.
movement and dance,
Oh,
being in nature,
uh-huh.
creating a beautiful mandala from natural objects and then walking away and leaving it.
Ooh,
Yeah. Take
that
a
sounds
photo,
cool.
take a photo of it, maybe as a reminder, put it on, you could hang it on your wall. Um, but yeah, leaving it and just seeing how nature will take something back and or
Ah,
move it around a bit and building up that sense. So there's those five books. Another thing that I actually was done for quite a long time, but hadn't realized how important it was, is keeping a small stone or something in my pocket.
mm-hmm.
And there's a forgiveness stone,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also another one where we work with gratitude. And it's just a physical reminder. You might move something or you feel it. And when you feel it or you put your hand in your pocket, it's a trigger to remind you
Hmm.
of how important it is to forgive yourself. Or and the other one is, what am I grateful for? Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
What am I grateful for right now? And yeah, things like that, which I find, obviously a writer myself, so journaling is something that's quite important. It is something that's used quite a lot. So again, maybe I mentioned it once, the journaling part, maybe once or twice in each book. But yeah, I tried to
But that
create
bears
actually,
repeating because
yeah,
every time I do a affirmation and journal prompt, I tell them the exact same thing. Before you start journaling, you write this down. What we're going to journal prompt is you put the date, the affirmation, the journal prompt, you sit in silence for 10 to 15 minutes. I go through how you get into that silence and when that chatter goes, how to get back into the silence and, tap in. And then when your timer goes off, I explain again about the writing in every single one because
I mean, yeah.
every single time it's important to remember because a lot of times without that reminder, people will write it down and just start answering,
Yes, yeah, and they
right?
feel that they're going to be judged or they have to get the right answer.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they're
which is not
going
the point.
from
Yeah.
their conscious mind, they're
Mm,
going from their past, they're going from all that. They're not writing the real truth to any
yeah.
answer because they haven't even tapped into it. They're just doing the surface work. And
Yes.
so every single time I tell them that. So you are supposed to every single time in every book tell them that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. I mean, one of my bestsellers, which I wrote for a friend of mine who's I used to be a dog trainer, and
You used to be a
um
dog trainer?
I used to be, well, I was a canine, well, probably still am a canine behaviorist. And I worked with
Ooh.
a lot of, yeah, puppies. And it's actually at the point in my life now where I suddenly realize a lot of these puppies a lot of them have passed away now from old age. So
Oh,
it's been a
wow.
while. And so I created a book, 60 creative activities you can do to cope with pet loss.
Oh,
And that was really interesting. For
yeah.
me, gosh, I've always had animals and I've got to actually a point in my life where I think I'm sick of saying goodbye to them.
Yeah.
I'd rather, in some sense, I'd rather live without them than this constant emotional upheaval. But so the book for me was really interesting, and I had this ideas that you can how to celebrate your dog and reconnect or your cat or anything really. So
Hmm.
that was another really interesting book. That's done
Yeah.
really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet that did. I had a dog for how old was he when he was 15, I think, when he passed. And it's funny because I was thinking it was 2 years. I looked it up because I put it in my digital calendar that this is the day that Ricky went across the Rainbow Bridge, so I can go back and say, when did Ricky go across? It's like that. So it's been 3 years. And I think about him every single day.
Yeah,
And
you do.
but
Yeah.
he was the most magnificent dog. There is something about the companionship of an animal that is just amazing. So now we have cats like you. We have cats. But I'm fostering my son's dog while he's getting stuff taken care of and everything. And I'm just snuggling with this dog and I'm enjoying it. And I will even say, you're not like Ricky, but I like you anyway. So because he's sweet, he's little, and so I'm just enjoying that. And if when my son gets him back, it's like there's going to be just that, even though he's not passing away, there's this grief process that you go
Yeah.
through just
Yeah.
from that, right?
Oh, absolutely. He will
Yeah.
leave a hole. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 So I'm
It's
trying to be prepared, and I've already told my daughter, no, when he goes back, we're not getting a dog right now. I think
famous
I'm,
last words.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to it. At least that's how I feel right now. Who knows, in the future I might change my mind, but right now it feels like, no, don't want to go there. But I love this conversation that we're having, and you are such um an anomaly as far as all the different things that you do. And so it's beautiful, right?
Thank
Um,
you. Yeah.
so, because the thing is that I hear so many people talking about how as people get older, they get stuck and they don't learn something new and they don't do all these
Mm,
things. And I'm thinking, that's not my experience with people. You know,
no.
I'm
Yeah.
65. I am constantly learning something new. And when you get into this kind of space, everybody is still growing and learning, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's the reason I want to, developing courses is for women our age. I'm 61, and I kind of feel somewhere in society we're being diminished and undervalued. We're
Hmm.
not seen anymore. Sometimes we're not even respected.
Yeah.
And we've also gone through a lot of changes. And so for me, I remember a time where I would climb on a roof. Now I'm too frightened to go up two steps in the ladder. And I'm like, what is really going on?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
has really happened to me? Yeah.
Well, it's society that does that to us
Yeah.
because
We need to get that back.
everything you see on TV is when people get to be a certain age, suddenly they're decrepit, they're on a
Yeah.
walker, you got to go get this shot because you might die. You got to, there's just this, it's like there's examples plethora of examples of how bad things can be as you get older, right? Do they
Oh,
ever show
absolutely.
us the
Yeah.
ones of the people
Yeah.
who excel
Yeah.
as they get older? No, because that doesn't
No,
sell anything, right?
that's right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and you can't, if people felt like getting older was just going to be fun and that they would continue to learn, they could continue to move, they could do all the things, right?
Yeah.
Then it would be a lot harder to control people.
True. That's very true, isn't it? Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Particularly women, because you know
Mhm.
what? I was reading about the evil women have pockets in their dresses. Was a time when you weren't allowed to have pockets because you might keep something in them, you
Yeah.
know.
It's
So
bizarre. It really
we're
is.
still fighting that fight.
Yeah.
In some regards, yeah.
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 Absolutely. So
Yes,
yeah.
definitely. So I love the things that you're doing and I can't
Thank you.
wait to hear about the courses that you're creating. And so we'll have to definitely keep in touch. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so I'll be anxious. And like I said, I'm going to invite you to come and be a guest expert in my Facebook group
I
and
would love that.
and
Oh, it'd be
share
so much
there
fun.
because that would be so much fun. All
Cool.
right, so we are at the end. We've hit the time limit here.
It
So
goes too quick.
it does when you're
It
having fun,
does.
right? But I have
Yes, it
enjoyed the hell out of this, and
Thank
I
you. Me
just want to
too.
make sure I tell everybody to like, subscribe, and share this episode because this needs to be out. It needs to be in the mainstream more, and
Yeah.
not just the polished people that are on YouTube, but the people that everybody can relate to, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
you, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Indeed.
I love that imperfect action. You can have imperfect art. You can just be you and everything's great, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So everybody that is listening or watching, I appreciate you being here so much and definitely share Susan's information and check out her information, which will be in the actual description. And if you have a comment or a question for her, definitely pop it in and then she'll be able to check on it. But
Absolutely. I'd love that. Yeah.
so everybody, I love you guys. Mwah.